Ever get that feeling like, we're kind of on the verge of something big with money? I mean, tap your phone here, scan a code there. It's getting pretty rare to actually pull out bills these days.
Yeah, that's a thought I've had too. Like, will cash actual physical money? Will that even be a thing in the future?
That's what we're diving into today, right? The future of cash or
Like,
the lack of it.
exactly. It's like with all this cool stuff happening in digital payments,
Yeah.
could we be heading for a world, maybe not intentionally, but a world without cash at all?
Kind of big deal to just phase out something that's, well, been around for so long.
Totally. So to really get into this, we've been looking at this paper from the IMF, the International Monetary Fund. It's called Digital Currencies and Cash. It's got this kind of catchy subtitle too, Insights from a Merchant Customer Model.
Catchy, yeah. But the paper itself, is it like super dense econ jargon all the way through?
Well, it's definitely got some economics in it, but they actually use a model that, tries to simplify things a bit. It focuses on like what happens when a customer walks into a shop, wants to buy something, and the shop has to decide how to take their payment. That basic interaction is what they're looking at.
Okay, makes sense. So for everyone listening, what we're aiming to do here is figure out, with all these new digital payment options popping up, is cash really on its way out? Like, is it just going to fade away naturally, or could these new technologies actually speed up that process? And we want to make this whole thing understandable, not like a boring economics lecture.
Yeah, absolutely. We're going for clear and interesting, not dry and academic.
So before we even get into the whole digital stuff, maybe it's worth taking a minute to appreciate what makes cash, like actual bills and coins, special in the first place. Why does it even matter if it goes away?
That's actually a really important point, and the IMF paper highlights that. So one thing about cash is it's pretty anonymous. Like when you hand over a $20 bill, there's no record of it, no trace, unlike a card payment or using an app.
Right, no middleman, no bank needs to approve it, nothing.
Exactly. And that means cash isn't subject to control in the same way that some digital forms of money might be. Like, no one can freeze your cash or track your spending just by looking at your transaction history.
Plus, think about it, if the power goes out or the internet's down, cash still works. It's like that backup system you always have.
Yeah, it's resilient. It's always there no matter what's happening with technology. They actually call it an outside option in the paper. It's like your guaranteed way to pay if all else fails.
So, cash has its perks, for sure. But the paper also points out that in a lot of places, people just aren't using it as much anymore, right?
That's true, yeah. The shift towards digital is definitely happening. And there are actually differing opinions on what a fully cashless society would even look like.
Yeah.
Like some experts, um, Rogoff is one, he suggests it could be a good thing, harder for criminals, like tax evasion, since everything's trackable.
Yeah, if everything's digital, it's easier to follow the money trail, for better or worse.
Right. But then you have others, like Rochemont and Beer,
Yeah.
and they raise concerns about privacy. Like, if everything's digital, is there even such a thing as a private transaction anymore? And the IMF paper even points out that once cash is gone, it's really hard to bring it back. Like, it's not a simple switch you could just flip.
Okay, so cash has its upsides, but we're using it less and less, and people have pretty strong opinions on whether going cashless is good or bad. So where does this merchant customer model that the IMF uses, where does that fit into all of this?
This model is kind of their way of breaking down a really complex issue into a simpler one. Like, instead of looking at the entire global economy, they focus on that one key interaction, a merchant accepting a payment from a customer. And they think about it like a two-sided market. It's like, imagine a dating app, but instead of connecting people who want to date, it's connecting people who want to buy and sell stuff using different types of money.
So instead of swiping left or right, it's about like who accepts what kind of payment.
Exactly. The model looks at what it means for a customer to actually carry a currency, meaning they have it and are ready to use it, and for a merchant to accept it, meaning they have the setup to take it. And then it dives into the costs and benefits for both sides.
Costs and benefits for the person buying and the shop selling. Break that down for us.
So for merchants, you've got fixed costs. Let's say UPC represents the cost for a shop to accept cash. That's things like, the cash register, secure storage, all the procedures for handling cash. Then you have PE, the cost of accepting cards, like the terminal, setup fees, all that. And then there's PE for accepting a digital currency, whatever that might be.
Okay, so those are like the initial investments, the upfront costs for each payment method. What about the ongoing costs every time a transaction happens?
Right, those are the variable costs. For cards, it's QD per transaction, those pesky merchant fees we all hear about. Cash, it's QC, which might be the cost of handling the cash, depositing it at the bank. And for digital currency, it's QZ per transaction.
Got it. So costs for having the ability to use each method and then costs every time you actually use it.
Right.
But there must be reasons why people and businesses want to use these different methods, right?
Yeah.
Benefits.
Absolutely, and that's where the customer side comes in. They also have costs.
Yeah.
CF could be the cost of carrying cash, like ATM fees,
Mm-hmm.
the hassle of having to get it. CD might be like annual fees for some credit cards.
Hmm.
SCs could be any costs for using a digital currency. But then there are the benefits, what they call variable benefits. CS represents the benefits of using cash. Maybe it's that sense of privacy or just knowing it's always accepted. Cards often have rewards, like cash back or points. And for digital currencies, it's is, which could be things like, earning interest, getting rewards, or just the sheer convenience for some online purchases.
So it's a whole mix of factors, some practical, some maybe more psychological, that influence whether a shop accepts something and a customer actually uses it. Anything else this model takes into account?
There's one more piece, and it's actually pretty clever. They consider what happens when a transaction doesn't happen. Like, if a customer only has cash and a shop only takes cards, that's a missed opportunity for both of them. The model gives that a value too, Ulker for the merchant and W for the customer. Like the merchant loses a sale and the customer maybe is disappointed they couldn't buy what they wanted.
Okay, so the model puts all these pieces together: costs, benefits, missed opportunities. Now, how does that help us figure out what might happen with cash and these other payment options?
This is where it gets really interesting. The model helps us explore the idea of equilibrium. Now, in economics, equilibrium doesn't mean everyone's perfectly happy. It means things have settled into a stable state where neither the merchants nor the customers have a reason to change what they're doing, given what everyone else is doing.
Like a set of habits that everyone's kind of stuck with because it just works.
Exactly. And one of the cool things they found is that single currency equilibria are always possible. That means a world where everyone uses only cash or a world where everyone uses only cards. Those can be stable outcomes.
So this is where it gets really interesting for me. If we somehow end up in a world where everyone's ditched cash and gone totally digital, this model suggests that cash just won't magically reappear, right?
That's a major point, yeah. Once a currency disappears and the system settles, there's no automatic mechanism for it to just come back. It shows how these changes can be really hard to reverse.
That's what they mean by irreversible extinction, huh? Kind of a sobering thought.
Definitely. But the model also looks at the possibility of two currency equilibria, where, say, both cash and cards are being used. It can even have what they call corner equilibria.
Corner equilibria. Paint me a picture of that.
Imagine all the shops decide to accept both cash and cards, right though. But some customers only ever use cash, and others only use cards. Or the reverse, all customers carry both. But some shops are cash only, others are card only. The model can tell you, based on all those costs and benefits, when these kind of specialized situations might happen.
So it's not always like one wins and the other loses. Sometimes there's room for both, even if it's in a kind of quirky way.
Exactly. They actually did a bunch of numerical simulations with this two-currency model, basically playing around with all the different costs and benefits to see what would happen. And guess what?
Did they find that we're all doomed to a world of only digital payments?
Not quite. But they did find that those corner equilibria, where one side of the market uses both payment types, but the other sticks to just one, those were surprisingly common. They found other types of two-currency equilibria too, with more mixing. But the key takeaway is, certain combinations of costs and benefits only led to single-currency equilibria. That means sometimes a mix of cash and cards might not be stable in the long run, and one could eventually win out.
So depending on how easy, how expensive, how rewarding each option is, we could naturally end up in a world where only one payment method rules supreme.
That's what the model suggests. But hold on, it gets even more complex. This model doesn't just look at static situations. It looks at how the system actually changes, like how people and businesses shift to new payment methods over time.
So how do we go from, say, mostly using cash to mostly using cards? What drives that change?
They make this really interesting assumption, and I think it's pretty realistic. They say customers are usually quicker to adopt new payment options than merchants. Like, think about it. If a new payment app comes out, you can download it and start using it pretty quickly.
Yeah.
But a shop, they have to get new equipment, update their systems, train staff. That takes time.
Yeah, totally. I can switch the apps on my phone way faster than my local coffee shop can revamp their whole payment system.
Exactly. So they built that delay into the model, how quickly merchants adapt based on what customers are doing. They use this factor, gamma. It represents how many merchants update their payment acceptance in a given time.
So customers are fast, shops are slower. How does that affect the whole outcome?
Well, it means the system changes gradually, right? Step by step, everyone adjusting. And they talk about these things called basins of attraction. It's like imagine a landscape with valleys. You start in one valley, you'll naturally roll down to the bottom. In our case, the valleys are different stable equilibria, like all cash, all cards, or some mix. Where you start, how many people are using each method initially, that determines which valley the system ends up in.
So basically, the past influences the future. Where we are today affects where we might end up.
Exactly. And they give some cool examples of these dynamic paths. Like if everyone starts carrying both cash and cards, you might see merchants specialize. Some go cash only, others card only. Or you start with a mix of merchants. Customers might change how they pay, but then more merchants realize, hey, gotta accept both to stay in business.
It's this back and forth dance, people changing, businesses reacting. But the point is, depending on where you start, either cash or cards could end up winning, maybe even becoming the only option.
That's right. And then, just to throw another wrench into the works, the model introduces a third player, digital currency, or DC.
Okay, now things are getting really interesting. We had cash and cards duking it out, and now there's a new digital contender entering the ring. What happens then?
Things get a lot more complex, that's for sure. Now, both merchants and customers have not just three choices, use one of the two or both, but seven possible options. They could use only cash, only cards, only the digital currency, or any combination of two of them, or even all three.
7 options. That's a lot of different ways people and businesses could behave.
It is. And then the model looks at how the costs and benefits change for everyone with this digital currency in the mix. Merchants have a new fixed cost, PZ, to accept it, a new variable cost, KZ, per transaction. Customers have a potential fixed cost, GZ, and a potential benefit, UZ. Plus, they consider how transactions might get split if people are carrying and merchants are accepting a mix of old and new currencies.
So if I have both cash and this digital currency, and a shop takes both, the model tries to figure out which one I'm more likely to use and which one the shop prefers.
Precisely, and with this extra layer, trying to visualize all the possible stable outcomes is almost impossible. It's not a simple two-way interaction anymore, it's this crazy six-dimensional space. But they still ran simulations with three currencies to see what stable situations might emerge.
And what did they find in this three-way battle royale? Did things get even crazier?
Well, they found situations where one currency dominated, situations with two coexisting, and even situations where all three, cash, cards, and the digital currency, found a way to coexist. They found different patterns of three currency equilibria too, like one where all merchants accept all three, but each customer mainly uses just one.
So it's not like the arrival of a digital currency automatically spells doom for cash or cards. It could lead to more diversity,
It's
right?
not necessarily doomed, but the really crucial question is, what happens when you introduce a digital currency into a world where cash and cards are already being used, maybe even in the stable way?
So picture this. Things are humming along with cash and cards, everyone's got their habits, and then boom, new digital option appears. What does the model say might happen?
They simulated this, introducing a digital currency at different scales, like a small, limited launch versus a huge rollout. And in two different ways. One, it works alongside cash, so shops that take the new currency still take cash. Or two, it's a direct substitute for cash, so shops might drop cash if they adopt the new digital currency.
Makes sense. Like a new digital wallet app might try to play nice with existing options at first, or might go straight for the kill, aiming to replace your actual wallet.
Exactly. And they had some really interesting findings. One, the scale of the launch matters a lot. A new currency has a much better chance if it's everywhere right away. Small experiments might just fizzle out.
Yeah, if only a couple places take it, why bother even getting it right?
Right. Two, how the digital currency is positioned is crucial. If it's presented as a cash replacement, it's way more disruptive than if it's just an extra option alongside cash.
Makes sense. If it's competing head-to-head with cash for everyday stuff, it's going to have a bigger impact on whether people use cash.
And three, introducing a digital currency can lead to all sorts of outcomes. It could kill off cash, it could kill off cards, it could replace both, or, like we said before, all three could coexist in some weird balance.
So lots of possibilities, not just one inevitable outcome.
Totally. But here's a really important point. Even if the digital currency itself flops, its mere introduction can still mess up the balance between cash and cards, maybe even leading to one of them disappearing.
Wait, so a failed digital currency could still take down cash? How does that even work?
It's like a little nudge to a delicately balanced system. If that nudge pushes things out of a stable two-currency equilibrium, and either cards or the new digital currency become the better single option, that's where you could see one disappear. They have all these examples in the paper. It's really cool. Like sometimes the digital currency fails and we just go back to cash and cards. But sometimes when the DC fails, cash is the one that disappears. Everyone's using cards. Or the DC replaces cards, but cash sticks around.
Yeah.
Or all three manage to coexist. And then there's the extreme case. The digital currency wins so hard, it replaces both cash and cards entirely.
So it's like introducing a new animal into an ecosystem. Even if it doesn't take over, it can still mess things up for the animals that were already there.
Perfect analogy. And this brings us to the big policy question. The IMF paper is really concerned that cash disappearing could be an unintended consequence of pushing these new digital payment methods.
But why is that a bad thing? Like, if we're moving towards a more efficient digital system anyway, what's the harm in ditching cash?
They remind us that cash has these unique roles, remember. It's that backup. When systems fail, it provides some privacy, and there could be real downsides to losing it, like more transaction fees, people being stuck if there's a digital outage, even worries about control over how people spend their money if everything's digital.
So losing that reliable, independent option could backfire in ways we don't even realize until it's too late.
Exactly. And the paper concludes that, governments and central banks, they need to be really careful with all this digital payment innovation. They need to think about these complex dynamics, maybe even take steps to make sure cash stays viable if they decide that's important for a stable and resilient payment system.
So the big takeaway for everyone listening is digital currencies are cool, they have a lot of potential, but introducing them is a tricky business. We could end up with a cashless society without even meaning to, even if those new digital things aren't super successful.
That's a great summary. This merchant customer model, it really helps us understand how these changes could happen, and it highlights how important it is to think about unintended consequences when we're messing with how we pay for things.
This has been a wild ride, a deep dive into the world of money and technology and all the craziness that comes with it. Definitely gives you a lot to think about. So here's a final question for you listening. Given all the cool things about cash, that anonymity, that independence, that reliability, what do you think we need to do to make sure it stays around, even as the world gets more and more digital? It's a conversation we definitely need to keep having.
Couldn't agree more. It's something we all need to be thinking about.
Until next time, keep those brain cells buzzing.
And keep those wallets, digital or physical, ready for whatever the future holds.